Good morning. I'm sorry if you were loud back there. We were having such a good morning chat, so I know this session's going to be a good one because these two are charming and entertaining folks. Tina, on your Twitter page, it says hashtag education and legal expert, hashtag social entrepreneur, hashtag CEO Achieve Atlanta, hashtag Latina working to provide equal opportunities for all, hashtag equity, and hashtag college success.
Yeah.
I'd say you're busy. And one of the things I want to, before we get into all that, I want to talk about your personal story a little bit because it clearly has fueled your work that you do now. So can you share with folks, I mean, you grew up in a place, let's say, isn't Buckhead?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Happy to share. So, hi everyone, really excited to be here. Tina Fernandez from Achieve Atlanta. I grew up in South Texas on the Texas-Mexican border in an area called the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, which at times has been the poorest congressional district in the United States. My mother is an immigrant from Mexico. My dad is a fourth, fifth generation Mexican-American. Tejano is how we like to say it. He didn't cross the border crossed him kind of story. And I grew up in a small town with one public high school where there were no AP classes, where the highest level of professional in my city was the teacher and the principal. But with parents who really, really valued education. My dad was a first generation college graduate and was a teacher, and my mom was a blue collar worker, got her GED when I was 15 years old. But they always instilled in us that education was really the ultimate goal, and to educate yourself and make yourself better. So I had the privilege of being able to go to Harvard for undergrad, and as an 18-year-old leaving South Texas, traveling to Boston, it was the first time that I really came face to face with the educational achievement gap, and really understanding the opportunities that I had growing up did not look like the opportunities of some of my classmates. So that sort of fueled a fire. I got really involved in public service when I was at Harvard working with kids. That led to doing Teach for America right out of college, and I've dedicated my life ever since to making sure that every single student and every single child in this country has the opportunity that I was really lucky to have to get an excellent education and live out their dreams. So that is why I do the work that I do.
So what moment were you sitting in Cambridge in a class when you realized, oh wow, there are people in this classroom who've had an entirely different experience than I have?
Yeah, there were several moments. One that really sticks out that was really formative my freshman year, and my freshman year was a little bit of an academic disaster because I was top of my class in my high school, but we hadn't really learned how to study in the same way that a lot of my peers had learned. And I was about to take my psychology exam, and I had no idea how to study, so I basically just memorized all the words in the back of the textbook in the glossary. And it was enough to get me through, but certainly not how I would advise a Harvard freshman to study for their psychology exam. So that was one of the moments. But I was lucky enough to have people in my path when I was in college, peers, professors, and mentors who helped me figure it out, and it made all the difference.
That support system that scaffolded you. In Achieve Atlanta's mission statement, it says achieve, expect, believe. Those are three very interesting words.
Yep.
I want to focus on the expect. Why do you have expectation in there?
Yeah, so when we launched Achieve Atlanta about 3 years ago now, we went through a whole core values exercise. Who are we and what do we value? And one of the things that we expect is excellence from ourselves. We want our students to expect excellence from themselves, but we also want them to expect excellence from the institutions that are serving them. And so for us, that expectation of excellence is both at a personal individual level, but also holding our school districts, holding our institutions of higher education to that same expectation of excellence to achieve great results, because that's what we think it takes.
Kendra, how did you get involved with Achieve Atlanta?
Achieve Atlanta was through college at Georgia State. So at Georgia State, they gave me like my first checklist And then from there, it was history. So that's how I found out about Achieve Atlanta.
What's been the most beneficial thing about Achieve Atlanta for you? How do you know it's made a difference?
Well, with Achieve Atlanta, I didn't know like where to start in college, so they gave me my first foundation of where to start from there, and from there I knew I was on track because I was able to register for classes and whatnot, and to show that I was college material, even though I thought I wasn't.
You thought you weren't? Why?
Yeah, but before Achieve Atlanta, it was a story where I was in Project Engages where they came to the inner city school and they gave us an opportunity to conduct research at Georgia Tech. So that's on my resume at first. And once I was able to gain that confidence, I was able to matriculate into college where I came into contact with Achieve Atlanta. And with Achieve Atlanta, I didn't know like where to go with college, and they guided me, so they gave me that one-on-one connection that I needed. Because Georgia State is really big, it's a big population. So when I met Achieve Atlanta, they honed in on me. I felt like I was getting that special attention I needed, and with the checklist, I checked everything off, and I was able to go from there.
Were you always good at science?
I was always good at science.
What was it, and what is it about science that you love so much?
Science, when I hear science, I hear sci-fi, and I'm able to just think abstract. I don't have to with numbers is too much, but with science, my imagination just goes everywhere. Because there's no right or wrong answer with research. Either you're right or you're wrong, and if you're wrong, you can prove that you're wrong. And if you're right, you can prove that you're right. So you're never cornered with science. That's why I like science. So, yeah, it's cool. And then, I'm sorry. And then, no, because...
You get all excited, it's good.
Yeah, I get excited, because after that...
Your science, I know you did a big research project
yeah, I did
with
a big
HIV,
research. So
right?
with HIV in high school, I've done work at Georgia Tech. And then I've also done work at UCSD where I've applied for this RU program, which is a summer research program in UCSD where we worked on microfluidic devices. And this summer I'll be heading to MIT, Boston, to work on nanoparticles at MIT. So that's cool.
You've had the benefit of Achieve Atlanta. Some of your friends, some of your peers, when they thought about college, how did it work out for them, and what did you see that you wish was different?
It was the confidence in my peers. They didn't think that they can go to college and actually achieve better, because the curriculum wasn't challenging. It wasn't challenging them. They didn't know that they had better in them. Ever since I was young, I knew that my friends could do it, but it was hard to get a group of classmates on the same level and achieve the same goal, because I knew if I can do it, everyone can do it. And I'm doing nothing different but putting in effort. It's all about effort, so that's what I feel.
When you hear Fernandez's story, does this ring true with what you see with the kids coming in, that they don't necessarily have the confidence, they don't necessarily have the mentorship that they might get, that other kids get? Is this story kind of classic?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key components of the Achieve Atlanta set of interventions that Kendrezi hasn't mentioned is our scholarship. And so one of the things that we do is we have a need-based scholarship. So our scholarship is not merit-based. Our scholarship is really based on students' financial need. And by allowing students to apply for a significant amount of money, $20,000 over 4 years to pay for college, we've seen over the last 2 years a significant increase in the number of students actually enrolling to go to college. And part of that is that all of a sudden there's this possibility, not just for students, but for families. At the same time, by making it possible to go to college, we're also working with Atlanta Public Schools to shift the culture and the mindset at the high schools that every single student needs some sort of post-secondary education, that it is possible, and then taking the stories of our scholars back to students in APS so that they can see real-life examples of students who are achieving great things. And these are not just the top 5%, the top 10%. These are, students from across the spectrum, and they're doing really great things. So we believe every student has the potential with the right supports to do really amazing things.
So what are the obstacles to that? That all makes sense. I think that anybody you said that to, that makes sense. So what are the obstacles?
Yeah, there are a few obstacles. One is resources, and we all know, some of the challenges with resources. Our Achieve Atlanta scholars, we are funding right now about 1,200 scholars across 100 colleges and universities in the state of Georgia and in the country. We're about to welcome another 850, 900 scholars. So we've got, we're going to have over 2,000 students in colleges next year. Financial barriers are real. Most of our students are Pell eligible students, which means that they qualify for a federal grant to help them pay for college. And when you apply for that federal grant, you have to fill something out called the FAFSA form. If any of you have kids in college or remember filling out the FAFSA, it's a form that basically tells the government your financial situation, your parents' financial situation, and then the government determines what your parents' contribution can be to college. That's the estimated family contribution, or EFC for short. What we have found is that over 75% of our scholars have an EFC of $0, meaning that the federal government determined that their families can contribute $0 to their college education. When you consider that a public institution in the state of Georgia, when you talk about tuition and room and board, books, et cetera, is about $20,000 a year. There is no way that students who don't have financial aid can go to college. So we're filling the resource gap. But then there's also gaps that are harder to fill, like social capital, like people in your family and in your networks who can tell you how to navigate the difficulties of a college, of going to college, just figuring out your major, what you want to do in your job. All of those are really big decisions that most young people cannot make on their own. And for a lot, I have a student who's going to be in college next year. My husband and I are helping him navigate that path, but not every student has that, and so we're trying to provide those resources.
When you were thinking about college, when you thought about money, did it just give you a cramp?
Yeah, that was a burden. So with the Achieve Atlanta, with the 2,500, it helped pay for room and board. Without that, I would have had to take out a loan, and my parents didn't have the money, so that helped out a lot.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of discussion these days about, is it better to go into the workforce debt-free versus go and get a 4-year education and come out with all this heavy debt?
Yeah.
How do you negotiate that with your students? People who come to you and say, okay, I would love to go to 4-year college, but I can't come out with that debt.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is Achieve Atlanta supports a variety of post-secondary pathways. So some of our students go to a technical college, some of our students go for a 2-year degree, and then some of our students pursue a 4-year degree. So we believe that there are different options for different students, but what we are very clear about is that every student needs a post-secondary credential or degree. The statistics show it. In the state of Georgia, 60% of the jobs are going to require some sort of post-secondary credential by the year 2020. And before we started this initiative, only 22% of Atlanta Public School graduates were earning a post-secondary degree of any kind. What does that mean? That we're not preparing students to be able to make a living wage, be able to support their families. It's no coincidence that Atlanta has one of the lowest rates of social mobility when we don't prepare our students and give them the tools they need to be able to have a life filled with options. So we really believe that some sort of post-secondary credential is necessary. And then we also tell students, we understand not wanting to take out debt, and we think that's a smart move. But there is some debt that's okay. Federal subsidized loans, if you go down a pathway where you're going to have a job at the end, those can be paid back. And the reality is that the statistics still show that someone with a college degree makes about $1 million more in their lifetime than somebody with just a high school degree. They also have lower rates of unemployment. They have better health outcomes, including people live longer. People with college degrees have higher life expectancies. So we think it's important, and through the Achieve Atlanta Scholarship are trying to reduce the need to take out private high-interest debt.
You mentioned the low social mobility in Atlanta. You've worked all over the country. What are some other specific issues to Atlanta that keep people from getting to college, and also for underrepresented people staying at college?
Yeah.
That's a big issue.
It is a big issue. And I think one of the things that, we talk about all kinds of challenges. One of the challenges with that our students face is many of our students, and I'm sure Kendrez can speak about this, live in segregated neighborhoods where everybody looks exactly the same. And most of those neighborhoods in Atlanta are black neighborhoods where students live in that neighborhood, go to a school that's almost 100% African American student population, and then go to college and may end up at a college where the student, maybe 15% of the student body are African American, and are all of a sudden in an environment where they're in the minority and where they haven't necessarily learned how to navigate the social expectations and pressures, and have to figure that out while also taking chemistry and figuring out how to pay for books. So one of the things that we work on is making sure that students, wherever they go, have a sense of belonging, that they believe that they should be there, that they can form meaningful connections on the campus, and that they can fully participate where they are.
Kendra, when you saw people not making it, could you understand why?
Yeah, I understand, because like I said, it was the confidence, and also with the resources. They weren't getting because I met a friend in college, his name is Jeff. But he's Asian American, so he didn't look like me. So I was like, what does he have that I didn't have? And he told me, when I was in high school, I was taking AP courses, and we didn't have AP courses at our class. I mean, at my school. So I was like, wow, he's ahead of me, just from the jump. When he first got into college, he was already at the junior level. But I stuck by him, and I learned what he learned, and from there I was able to piggyback off his work and mirror his work effort.
And that's awesome that he was able to sort of work with you too. That you guys, some people aren't able to make those connections. I think you can connect with anybody. Does anybody in the audience have a question? We have a couple of more minutes, if there's anybody. If I see any mics, I can keep going. Oh, we've got someone right here.
This is the question for the student. Oh, sorry, name and orgs. John Augusto, Georgia State University. Glad to see one of our students on the stage this morning. You talked about your experience doing research. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of the speaker before talked about future skills? Can you talk a little bit about what research is bringing to your skill set as a college student?
Well, now I'm here on stage and I'm able to talk. At Georgia Tech, so that helped with my presentation skills and my oral communications and my leadership development, because some of the kids are nervous and they freak out, but it's okay because everyone's nervous and it'll be all right. And once you get through those jitters, it'll be fine. And also it helped with reading comprehension and whatnot, and also seeing leaders in their field doing what they love. And I was able to see what it takes to make it that way, because I had a mentor. And I saw every day he was putting in effort to get to where he want. And we need to see that effort. Once we see that effort and we can see what it takes to be the boss in the field, everyone, I like this analogy, research is people's sport. That's their sport. Them getting published, that's how they dunk. That's everything. So that's how I try to relate that back, because they go hard in their field. So if we want what others want, we have to get on board. So, yeah.
Anyone else in the audience? Got right here.
I'm John McIntyre, Georgia Tech. Just wondering why you chose Georgia State. Yeah. For example, there are a lot of HBCUs that are great. We work a lot with HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. There are a lot of other schools in the area, I mean, we've got about 250,000 students in Greater Atlanta.
That's a live recruitment.
Well, I chose Georgia State because it was cost friendly and whatnot. So when I was looking at the cost of all the school, I considered Morehouse or whatnot, but I would have to take out a big loan, and I knew I'm not loan material. I was smart enough, I didn't have to take out a loan, so I knew my worth.
I'm going to finish up with the title of this segment was "What It Takes to Make It." If you had to boil that down, what does it take to make it for someone coming out of the Atlantic Public Schools going to college?
What it takes is the individual effort combined with a community who will support that student every step of the way.
Same for you. You get to finish this out. What do you think it truly takes to make it, from your point of view, as a student of color?
Just believe in the child. That's what he wants. He wants somebody. He's yelling. He gets turned on people turn their back on him every day when he go home. And at school, he's just looking for somebody to say, "Come here," bring them in and tell them that they can do it. Because it's reading and writing, so if you can read and write, the rest of it is history. You can do that. So that's what it takes.
Well, good luck to you in Boston at MIT. I know you're going to
Yeah.
rock it. Let's thank our panel.